Hello, this is Father Rich coming to you from the courtyard of the Rectory at Our Lady of Peace for our next masterpiece, number 29. Its title was something that this courtyard kind of makes me think of, the Garden of Eden, and specifically creation. And so the masterpiece is The Creation by Franz Joseph Haydn, which I just did the whole video saying Haydn and had to redo it because I mispronounced it. We got the air conditioner off so we could hear, and now we have a helicopter hovering close by. So we're gonna just go for it. I really was fascinated to learn about this creation. It's another oratorio in the same vein with Bach's St. Matthew Passion and Handel's Messiah. And in fact, it was the Messiah that inspired this oratorio by Haydn. They say even though he was one of the most accomplished, if not really the greatest composer of his time, a little ahead of Mozart. Mozart was younger than him, but they were contemporaries and friends, that he listened to Handel's Messiah and he walked out and said, none of my work compares to this. He saw the response of the audience, the great applause at the end, the emotion that it evoked, and he said, I want to do something like this. So he went to work on his oratorio, The Creation. The words were written by Baron von Swieten, who was actually a German, wrote them in English, and he was hoping that, I always get these names, Handel would do something with his words. Handel ended up not doing anything, so they were left there for Haydn to use to put to an oratorio. On the first 7 days of creation, through the music, he kind of starts with chaos. They say it kind of starts in dissonance, and then it leads into kind of this moving towards the creation, a soft pizzicato, as it says, with the strings, which is shattered by a C major chord that crashes upon the scene, continues with a mighty chorus of voices singing, Let There Be Light. So a very dramatic beginning. They say the first one, the premiere, the orchestra actually had to stop because there was such a response and clapping and kind of, connection at the beginning that they had to wait for the crowd to calm down so they could move on. But Haydn, in his own words, would say that the purpose that he composed it was for the worship and adoration of the Creator. And the author says the oratorio is vivid and powerful in its depiction of the unfolding creation story, using Haydn's musical textures to paint the procession of God's creative acts. So again, it took about an hour and 45 minutes, I think, when it's performed, versus the 2 hours and 45 minutes you see with Messiah and the St. Matthew Passion. But Haydn actually, they say he really had to work hard to make it happen. Whereas Handel, things that kind of came more naturally to, and Mozart, they clearly say all this it just kind of came naturally to him. Haydn had to kind of work and plow through it. He had to be disciplined. He had to commit himself to daily kind of writing of the music to kind of plow through it. But when he did an amazing job to the point where he was considered one of the greatest composers of his time and one of the most prolific. He produced many works. They say the creation concludes with another show-stopping chorus, which leaves the listeners with the exalted praise of God ringing in their ears. Sing to the Lord, ye voices all. So, and they say that Haydn, at the end of his life, he listened one last time. They brought him in when he was sickly. He was born in 32. He died in 1807 or 9. And he was actually in Paris, and they say that he was brought in for the last performance, and he says at the moment when the chorus burst into and there was light, the audience burst into spontaneous applause. He lifted up his hands and said, not from me, it all comes from above. So he was a very devoted man, Christian. He was actually Catholic. They say he would say rosaries when he would get stuck, and it would tended to be helpful for him to get him refocused and to keep moving on. So he was born into a religious and musical family, so this was something that kind of was natural for him to get involved in. He was a choir boy at a young age in Vienna, and eventually got kicked out for some of his mischievous actions. But then he was always kind of barely getting by. He never was highly successful financially, but did enough to get the money that he needed. But he went on, as I mentioned, to be one of the most prolific composers. His output, because of this hard work and determination, 104 symphonies, more than 68 string quartets, and they say that he was probably had almost reached a perfection that had never been heard with the string quartets and symphonies. More than 100 piano pieces, a dozen masses, and 24 operas. He was in demand throughout Europe. He even spent some productive years in England. So he went on to write other famous works, Surprise, The Clock, La Poule, where he would actually imitate the sounds of these things in music. So that was something that he was pretty well known for. One thing they say that he really had a cheerfulness about him that, again, sometimes got him in trouble when he was younger. And even some of the church authorities questioned whether there should be this level of kind of non-seriousness in the sacred music. And he would respond to that in this way: God gave me a cheerful heart, so he will surely forgive me if I serve him cheerfully. That was his response. So Mozart called him Papa Haydn because he was older than him by several decades, but they had a good relationship. Mozart died before Haydn did when he was younger, and this grieved Haydn greatly, the loss of his good friend and fellow musician. So the last piece of this focus is, again, I think, just the devotion and the different ways that these different writers would bring that faithfulness to their music, but all to glorify God. So that's number 29, The Creation by Franz Joseph Haydn. And I didn't mention, but it was done in 1798. So that's the time frame. Whereas, remember, Bach's Passion was done, what did we figure that out? 1727. Handel's Messiah was 1741. So this was a little bit of like a generation later for Haydn, and The Creation, 1798, but three great oratorios of the 18th century. So thanks for joining me. Our next one will be a novel, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and that'll be our 30th masterpiece. So please join me. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day, and God bless.